Oh, hey, Robin. How you doing tonight, girl? Oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah, take it off. Wait. What are you doing? No, I don't want to go in the dog cage. No, not again, Robin. Please, no! Anything! Not like this! Not like this, Robin! Oh, God! No! Hey, guys. What's up? It's kind of weird you guys are watching me sleep right now, but that's fine. I'm a little bit disturbed by the nightmare I just had. That's actually been happening to me a lot lately, like several times a night. But hey, while we're here, let's talk about another kind of nightmare. Yeah, let's do that. Let's turn some lights on. Hey everybody, I guess Insomniac Tekking here, as I haven't slept in a month. I'm a zombie. But here to talk about a certain aspect of Luffy's power that he's only shown once and probably will never show again, although it is not impossible that he could ever go into this form again, and then that's going to be actually a topic for another video, the fate of Gecko Moria and what he actually might do later on in the series, like he's going to reappear at some point, maybe in Wano. Why would Gecko Moria reappear in Wano? Well, maybe because he has a vendetta against Kaido, which he totally does, so who knows? We'll hold off on that for a little while. But, yeah, basically, remember that time Luffy turned into the Incredible Hulk and wrecked Oars and Moria's collective shit? Yeah, let's talk about that, because that was pretty cool, if I do say so myself. That was pretty cool. Of course, it's kind of hard not to view something like that cool. You know Oda had a freaking field day with that chapter, where he's like, I'm just gonna, you know, invent some power-up for Luffy, make him super buff, ridiculously large muscles, the dude grows to an enormous size to the point where he can, like, hold Usopp and Nami in his hands, you know, just like, stay here, I got this. He's got a giant sword on his back, he's blocking Oars' blows. Keep in mind, Oars himself is, like, the size of a skyscraper, and not even that, like, not even just blocking his punches, he's literally grabbing him and twirling around by his hair, and just, like, it's like something straight out of Looney Tunes. There was a scene where he was, like, just grabbing Oars' hair and just BAM! 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 Just knocking him back and forth, and it's just so much fun to watch that episode. Like, if you're gonna watch, like, any episode from Thriller Bark, there's a lot of really good ones. There's the one where Brook first appears, there's the one where Brook cuts a giant spider in half, there's the backstory of Brook. I'm noticing there's a lot of Brook episodes on the best Thriller Bark list, but it's the arc that introduced Brook, so what are you gonna do? There's the Straw Hats collective battle against Oars, there's the time Sanji kicked Absalom into the side of a wedding chapel. There's a lot of really good episodes, but one of my favorites is the episode where Luffy just roids out and just decimates Moria and Oars. Now, the fight did not end there. It kind of should have. In fact, I rewatched it last night. As you can tell from the obvious hype, there was a scene in that fight where, remember how Moria was inside Oars' like, control room, I guess, and he's, like, you know, piloting Oars, and there was the scene where, like, Nightmare Luffy just gum pistols him right in the face, and it's like, how the hell was he still conscious after that? How did he not break every single bone in his skull? Is the skull one bone? I feel like the skull is just one bone. That's your jaw, too, so it's two, right? I don't know. How many bones are in this head structure area? That should have just gotten atomized right there. Right there. But it didn't. It was a lot of fun, though, to watch. So as we got that, and oh, by the way, and another scene there is when Luffy grabbed Oars' horn and just, like, tossed him to the ground, like in a wrestling match, and all this crazy stuff's going on. In fact, there was an OST, an original soundtrack that played during that fight with Oars, and I could not for the life of me find it. It was, like, I guess the Nightmare Luffy OST. It was not a soundtrack I had ever really heard before in One Piece, and I'm rather familiar with a lot of the soundtracks of One Piece, could not pick that one up. So that might have been an unreleased one, but there's a scene where Luffy does that and just, you know, slams Oars to the ground, and then you have Usopp and Nami off to the side who are just, like, their jaws are dropped to the floor, like, and then Usopp has this line that's just like, I have no idea what's going on right now, but it's awesome. He doesn't say the awesome part, but we're thinking it. Okay, so what is Nightmare Luffy aside from basically roid rage in manga format? Okay, well, this is actually a product of Moria's Kage Kage no Mi. See, the Kage Kage no Mi is an incredibly powerful devil fruit. All right, it's just Moria was not the best candidate to have it. Now, don't get me wrong, Moria did a lot of stuff with his fruit. The problem with Moria is he's very slothful. In fact, many people have compared the 7 Warlords of the Sea, the original 7 that we got introduced to the 7 Deadly Sins. Now, this doesn't sync up for every single one of them. For some, it syncs up absolutely. Like, Hancock is obviously lust, and Moria is obviously sloth. You could look at Doflamingo as wrath. You could look at Crocodile as greed. Syncs up for a lot of them. When it comes to Mihawk, I guess you could say pride. But yeah, when you look at Moria, he's definitely sloth, because Moria's motto is literally, hurry up and make me king of the pirates. You know, I'm not gonna do any of this stuff myself, because I have this immensely powerful devil fruit. I can make zombies to do my bidding, so he doesn't do a lot of the fights. Even when it was a one-on-one standoff between him and Luffy, he still made his doppelman, his shadow man, do all the work, right? So that's the kind of guy Moria is. Now, even with that kind of, lethargy that he has, he still managed to set up Thriller Bark. He had this operation going for 10 years, capturing pirates and navy and just passerby and stealing their shadows and making a zombie army. But that entire time, he was very slothful, okay? So if the Kage Kage no Mi was given to somebody with maybe a little bit more intelligence and a little bit more of initiative, it would be even more useful. But that fruit, that just speaks for the fruit's usefulness, okay? Being able to rip out people's shadows and make an army of zombies, and then take, or you could take those shadows into yourself and make you stronger. Very powerful aspects of that fruit. However, to kind of balance this out, there's also a lot of negative aspects of it too. So for instance, the salt thing, that's already been established. Like, whenever a zombie ingests salt, the soul is removed, or the shadow, because that's not the same thing exactly. The shadow is removed from their body. However, it's actually possible for somebody else, not even the user of the fruit, to actually take the shadow and contain it. Like, literally take out a jar, take the shadow, stuff it into the jar, and you have instant shadow, or, whatever. You can keep it, on your person, and you can do whatever you want with it. You could even absorb it into yourself. However, a downside with this is if a shadow is absorbed into somebody that's a living human being that does have a soul, regardless of whether or not they had their shadow stolen or not, it only remains in their bodies for about 10 minutes or so until it's expunged. And when it is expunged, that's a fun word of the day, it returns to its original user. So, there is a benefit to this though. Whatever traits the original user of the shadow had go into the new host. It's the same thing with the zombies. You had Brooks' shadow, who knows about the fencing style of swordsmanship, went into Ryuma. Ryuma could also recall all of the memories that he had while he was alive, but also adapted Brooks' speech patterns as well as his fencing style. So whenever a shadow that had a marine swordsman got put into Luffy, Kalu Kalei, Luffy is now a swordsman. Which, by the way, going back to that whole best swordsman in One Piece popularity poll I'm running right now on the channel, Luffy is in fact in the top 10. I'm not going to tell you all the rankings because the poll's not over yet, but Luffy is in the top 10. So when we announce the winners, it's very likely Luffy will be on the top 10 list of the best swordsmen in One Piece. And hey, you know what? From this scene right here where he absorbed that marine swordsman, and then later on when he's Nightmare Luffy and he's swinging around basically a giant buster sword katana, I am fine with that decision, alright? Anywho, after absorbing one shadow, Luffy still managed to maintain consciousness, although he had the ring, the dark rings under his eyes. That's like just to tell that I guess there's, another soul, another essence living in your body at this point. Souls and shadows are not the same thing. We know this because there is a soul fruit and there's also a shadow fruit, so not the same thing. Your soul is completely dependent on your status, if whether or not you are alive or you're dead. So I think it's pretty obvious which one you are. It depends, do you have a pulse? Okay, you have a soul. If you don't, then you don't. Except if you're Brook, because that's an exception with Brook. There's exceptions to everything in the One Piece world. Brook is technically in a corpse right now, but he is alive because of the Yomi Yomi no Mi. But under normal circumstances, yeah, when you die, your soul leaves you. Your shadow is sort of like your essence, I guess. It retains your battle style and your speech pattern and all that stuff, but it isn't your soul. Okay, so the issue here is that normally, if a human absorbs a shadow into themselves, they can only maintain maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you're a little strong, because Lola was talking about this, and the Risky brothers, they were talking about this, like, we tried to put shadows into ourselves to get powerful enough to take on Moria, but we could only absorb 2 or 3 before we passed out. If you take too much into your... Imagine it like absorbing someone else's consciousness, like, eventually it's just gonna overload, and you're gonna pass out, and then all the shadows are gonna leave you, okay? However, Luffy is special. Luffy has a very strong, ironclad will, and a very large sense of individuality, and I think the Will of D also helps there too, so he could absorb way more shadows. How many? Fun fact, we don't actually know the upper limit. When he became Nightmare Luffy, he absorbed 100. However, that was only the number of shadows that the rolling pirates, Lola and the Risky Brothers and all the other members of I think it was like the Thriller Bark Victims Association or something they called it, something weird like that. They managed to gather up 100 shadows that they managed to purify from the zombies. But who knows? Luffy's upper limit could have been more than that. Maybe not necessarily way more than that. Nothing like Moria, because Moria is the owner of the fruit, so he was able to absorb all of them at once, like Shadows Asgard. Awesome name for a move. So that was 1,000 shadows that Moria was able to consume, because he's the supreme master of the shadow. But in terms of Luffy, I think it's possible he might have been able to handle more than that, maybe up to 200 or something. But yeah, now taking in all that consciousness, all those essences into you, has a few negative side effects. Wait, no, sorry, has a few awesome side effects. First off, you grow way larger, your skin turns blue for some reason. You get super bulky, super serious, and you can use a sword. So, yeah. Think about it this way. All of the different battle abilities, all the different skills, all the different martial arts, all the different sword techniques in all of those shadows, because Moria, he probably absorbed the shadows of just everybody that managed to, that got lost in the Florian Triangle. He targeted to absorb their shadows. So there are probably some zombies out there that are pretty weak sauce. They don't have the shadow of a marine badass or like a pirate that has a 400 million berry bounty or something. There's probably a lot of shadows out there that like Sindri. Sindri was not animated with a really strong shadow. It was the shadow of some random maid that just really hated plates for some reason. And Hogback could augment her body to make the body itself durable, and she's a zombie, so she doesn't feel pain or anything like that, so she could still fight. But yeah, not every shadow is a badass shadow, but still, a lot of them that went into Luffy did have those traits. So all of these skills get added to Luffy, but Luffy still managed to maintain his individuality. I liken it a lot to in Bleach, when, little bit of Bleach lore right now. There are these things called hollows, which are basically vengeful spirits, and when a bunch of these vengeful spirits meld together, they create a Gillion, which is essentially a giant thing with a spiky nose, not unlike Usopp. However, in order to reach the next level of being a hollow known as an Adhuges or Stone Demon, you have to have a certain level of individuality to compress together, and then you could become an Adhuges hollow after you absorb other Gillions. So that's how that works there. Luffy is basically still himself. I say basically because he becomes a lot more serious. I don't know if this is because it's like he has to give everything he's got to not lose consciousness, because you got all these different consciousnesses and essences inside of you that you're just like, alright, I'm still Luffy, but he's not the joking around. He's not the fun-loving Luffy at this point. He's a very serious kind of like... And hey, this might also just be because his friends were in danger. His friends were getting the shit kicked out of them by oars. And when Nightmare Luffy first appeared, he saved Nami and Usopp when they get knocked into the building. So you know, it might have just been that reason, like he's very serious right now to save his friends, or it might just be because of the effects of the shadow, or maybe Oda didn't want to depict Luffy like that. Like, imagine Nightmare Luffy showing up, giant, you know, I'm the infraggable Kronk. You know, he shows up and just like, hey guys, what's going on? You got some meat? I think it might have just been a little bit weird, so that's why Oda just kept with the very serious demeanor. But I like it because there's no bullshitting around here. Nightmare Luffy shows up on the scene, saves Nami and Usopp, sets him down, is like, hold on, I got this. And then Oars just, you know, rifle! And then Luffy just blocks it with one arm and then just proceeds to just futta-whackering all over Oars. Was that a word? I don't know. I just came up with it. That's a thing we're doing, alright? Now, unfortunately, the 10-minute time limit still plays a factor here. It's kind of an anime trope at this point. You will receive unyielding power! But only for about 5-10 minutes, you know, you gotta keep it fair and balanced with a time limit here. So, Luffy does amazing acrobatic trips here. He even takes out the sword at one point and slices Oars right across his stomach. That was pretty cool. Beats up Moria. Like I said, this one punch should have laid him out for the rest of the arc, but whatever. I guess he was tougher than he looked. By the way, what's up with the stitch on his head? Like, what happened to him? Like, was that something he was born with, or was that something that happened later on in his life? Why is there a giant stitch right on his head? I don't know. I don't need to know. Okay, so, after Luffy's time as Nightmare Luffy is up, after the time limit, after he uses Gumu Gumu no Storm, where, look at this, I mean, oh my god, it's just basically like Oars getting hit with a blue, like, ICBM or something. It's just like, whoa, it's too much! So, Oars gets laid out, all the shadows go out of Luffy. Luffy he manages even to get back up after that. It's something that would normally just wreck somebody's body, having that many shadows in them. And Luffy, I think, gets knocked out for a little bit, but he gets back up long enough to land, like, the finishing blow on Oars when the Straw Hats get together. Maybe that's what Oda was going for. He's like, alright, Nightmare Luffy softened them up something fierce, but I want the finishing blow for this to be all the Straw Hats working together to take out Oars. So there's that scene where, you know, like, I think it's, Frankie and Zoro, you know, take out Oars' knees, and he gets dropped, and then Sanji uses the chain from the mast on Thriller Bark to, like, angle up Oars' chin, and Chopper's, like, you know, angle up his spine so it's straight, so there's no recoil, there's nothing that could absorb the damage, and then, Luffy just uses giant bazooka from the sky, and just... That was an awesome scene. Okay, now, that's the only time we've seen Nightmare Luffy. However, I think any One Piece fan worth their salt, see what I did there? Will notice that there are some comparisons between Nightmare Luffy and Gear 4th. The most notable one are the eyes. Gear 4th and Nightmare Luffy kind of have the same eyes. I think Gear 4th's is a little bit more elaborated, like the rings, the darkened rings, stretch out a little bit more here. Nightmare Luffy, I think, was just like a single ring around the eye like that. But that's the obvious one. Another one is an increase in muscle mass, although I think I would say that Nightmare Luffy is still bigger than Gear 4th. It depends what version of Gear 4th that Luffy's using, because he has Bound Man, but then he has Tank Man, and Tank Man full version, which is probably bigger or about the same size as Nightmare Luffy. Nightmare Luffy is huge. Like, if you go back and watch the fight and you read it, like, you can get a look, because unlike, it is a Devil Fruit based ability because it's coming from the Kage Kage no Mi, but because of, I guess it's not Luffy's inherent Devil Fruit, like, his clothing doesn't, like, his vest is, like, super shrunk, and you could see his hat on his back, and his hat is, like, super tiny, so Nightmare Luffy is just giant, alright? He might even be, like, the same size as, like, probably bigger than, like, Whitebeard, might even be the same size as, like, Big Mom or something. Nightmare Luffy is huge, alright? So, anyway, the increase of muscle mass with Gear 4th, obviously, that's like a comparison there. But also, you have to consider that this form might not actually be just one done. You know, it was a pretty cool thing, and I know Oda why he wanted to do it, to see Luffy beating the crap out of a giant, but you have to remember, Moria is not out yet. He's not dead. He's still around. He was almost taken out by Doflamingo at the end of Marineford, but he was saved by Absalom. Quick recap here. Moria, at the end of Marineford, you have Doflamingo that was apparently given orders from higher up, which we assumed it was the Gorosei. Might have been Imsama. I don't know. But he was given orders to take a bunch of pacifistas into the back streets and just eliminate Moria, because Moria, he was too weak. You know, he got beaten by Luffy on Thriller Bark, and we had to cover that up, and now at Marineford he was a disgrace. He was beaten out by Jinbei. They're like, we can't have you anymore. I think there might be also a viable reason why the Marines would want the Kage no Mi, because let's think about this. It's a fruit that allows you to resurrect the dead. Okay? Because it would be one thing. I haven't done a video about the Kage no Mi. Well, that'll be a video for October. We'll get into that when we get closer to Halloween. Woo. But, anyway, the thing is, with the Kage no Mi, it would be one thing if you, like, take out, like, let's say Brook's shadow, and you throw it into the zombie, and it doesn't matter what original body the zombie was, the zombie just acted like Brook. That would be one thing, but that's not how it worked. Ryuma, somebody that has been dead for centuries, remembered who he was. He remembered, you know, being Ryuma. So, can you imagine that? If the Marines got their hands on the Kage no Mi, and they had the preserved remains of, like, Joy Boy or somebody, and they could bring them back from the dead, or some long-lost Marine hero or something, or and the user of the Kage no Mi has complete control over the shadow. Alright, even Luffy's shadow, and, you know, they gave him a little bit of trouble at first, you know, to balance out, but eventually, after enough time had passed, Oars was completely subservient to Moria's will. So, you'd think that would be a fruit that the Marines would definitely want to have, you know? Imagine if it wasn't, if Blackbeard didn't show up, and Shanks didn't show up, and the Marines ended up capturing Ace's and Whitebeard's bodies. Imagine taking a really strong shadow, throwing it into Whitebeard, and then Whitebeard is completely subservient to the Marines and the world government. That would be something I think they would like to have, you know? So that's another reason why they might have wanted Moria dead. But he didn't die. Absalom showed up at the last minute. Absalom was actually present during the entire war of Marineford. He was just invisible the entire time. Oda confirmed this. Finds Moria right about on Death's door from Doflamingo's attack, turns him invisible, and gets him out of there. Now, we still don't know what's up with Moria. We don't know where he's at right now. We've been told about, you know, Absalom's existence from time to time. He is now a traveling freelance journalist by the name of Absa, and he's going around and just taking a bunch of pictures. He was present at Reverie, he was present during the Kid and Hawkins and Apu Alliance, and just that's what he does for a living, and sells his articles to Big News Morgans, alright? So that's what he does. Hogback also escaped from Thriller Bark with Absalom and Moria. Perona, we know what's up with her. She's taking it longsword style on Mihawk's Island right now. So there's 3 of the Mysterious 4 that are still around, and I did a video about all the Mysterious 4 if you want to like a refresher on all of those guys. But I like to think that Moria is planning his revenge. Right now, who would he be directing this revenge towards? Well, I think probably the world government, because they're the ones that wanted to kill him. Doflamingo did tell him that before he disappeared. He's like, Moria was like, who told you to do this, Sengoku? And Doflamingo was like, no, even higher. So Moria knows who put a hit out on him. He knows it's the higher-ups. So I think Moria, after having all this stuff happen to him, I think he might have had a change of direction in his life. Maybe Moria is going to try to be a little bit more, you know, proactive now. And he's going to be like, you know what? I tried to do everything. I tried to, like, push all the deeds off to everybody else. And look where that ended me up. You know, so I almost died there if it wasn't for Absalom. I am going to use my Devil Fruit power, and I'm actually going to try to take out, like, the higher-ups now, right? Now, another way to look at this is Kaido. Because Kaido was the one that took out all of Moria's crew while he was in the New World. And that's something he has a lot of trauma about. You know, like, that's something you even mention Kaido to Moria, and he just kind of like... You know, like, he has some pretty bad post-traumatic stress from what happened there. Now, I don't know if that means that he would try to go after him again, because you'd figure if he could manage to get, like, that might be a plan. Think about it. Like, Moria's like, alright, we need to take out the Gorosei. And Absalom or Hogback are like, that's impossible. We can't. How would you even start doing something like that? All of our zombies are gone. We lost Oars. You would need a zombie that would even be stronger than Oars to even attempt taking on the world government. Maybe Moria might be like the one that took out my entire crew, Kaido. If we could get his zombie, or his shadow, we might stand a chance at this. And I can't say he's wrong if that would be the line of reasoning. Like, if you managed to steal Kaido's shadow and throw it into a zombie, don't know who you would maybe take Kaido's shadow and put it into Moria. Because Moria is the absolute controller of shadows. So that 10-minute time limit, that doesn't really adhere to him that much. He can keep as many shadows as him as he wants to. It's just that when he did Shadows Asgard the first time, he was already beaten up from Nightmare Luffy, like slamming his fists into him at Mach 5, and he was kind of like fading in and out of consciousness. So, and then of course he still had to fight Luffy, and like every punch, you know, he was like slowly losing consciousness and shadows started to fly out of him. But if Moria were like in perfect health and just absorbed Kaido's shadow, he's the master of the Kage no Mi. He should be able to take it, you know, okay? So maybe that's his plan. Like, I'm going to take on one of the Yonko, steal their shadow, and then try to take on the Gorosei or Im-sama as revenge for trying to kill me, for putting a hit out on me. Maybe something like that. And if Moria is still around, it's very likely that Nightmare Luffy might come back. And I have I have a perfect way that this could work. I have something that would work perfectly here. Okay. So, Moria's crew right now, unless he recruited some more people, unless he gathered up some more shadows and some more zombies, which is possible, he has Hogback still working for him, but Moria's crew is definitely not the size of what it used to be. And Moria knows how devastating Kaido is. So if Moria is hanging out in Wano, in the shadows right now, he might want to be like, alright, I'm going to use, like, Apu and Hawkins and Kid and Luffy and Zoro and all the other Straw Hats. I'm going to let them soften up Kaido for me. And then at the last minute, I'm going to sneak in and I'm going to steal Kaido's shadow. Because I don't have my crew's not nearly, I got wiped out the first time. My crew's not big enough. I can't do it in a one-on-one battle. But if I let all these other people fight him for me, I might stand a chance. And I could even see a moment where he might even want to forge an alliance with Luffy and Law and Kid or somebody. He might, you know, he might begrudgingly do it, but he might be like, you know, Straw Hat, I know you defeated me in the past, but that's in the past right now. I don't care about that anymore because the world government tried to kill me. All right, so here's the deal. I will give you, I will power you up. I will turn you back into Nightmare Luffy. Can you imagine Nightmare Luffy plus Gear 4th? I can! It's like, I will give you these shadows to make you Nightmare Luffy again, to fight Kaido. In exchange, I get his shadow. Now, Luffy, he doesn't care about shadows or anything. That's Moria's business. Luffy might not even care. He might just be like, alright, fine. You know, all I care about is taking out Kaido. You want to take his shadow? Fine. That's your business. You want to take out the Gorosei? Fine. That's your business. I don't care. So, I can imagine that. And don't even say for a second that's impossible. Just from the sake of Oda drawing that alone, you know the kind of guy he is. That would be, his mouth would be watering at doing that. Like, Gear 4th Snake Man Nightmare Luffy. I mean, come on now. That would be amazing to see that in action. Oda would definitely want to draw that. So, yeah, that is definitely something I could see happening with the Moria Alliance Gambit if he is in Wano. He might not even be in Wano. He might try to be taken out the Gorosei or Im-sama through other means. I'm just throwing out a possibility because Moria and Kaido both have a relationship. Kaido wiped out his crew, and it might be kind of poetic to see Moria at least play a role. Like, Moria uses his Kage no Mi, turns Luffy back into Nightmare Luffy. Nightmare Luffy, Gear 4th, you know, decimates Kaido along with all the other supernovas that are helping out, along with all the other Straw Hats. And then after that whole brawl is over, it's like, yeah, Moria kind of got some cred back after he got decimated by Kaido the first time, you know? That's what I'm talking about here. And that's kind of the thing I think Oda would do. But anyway, what do you guys think about Nightmare Luffy on a scale of 1 to... How awesome is it? Thanks for watching the video, everybody. I'm gonna try to get some sleep because I have been kind of exhausted lately. I've been working a lot. So, I'm gonna hit some Z's. You have a good one. Hope you have sweet dreams tonight, everybody. Tekking signing out!